This episode of the Deep Thinkers podcast is brought to you by Element Stoneworks. Element Stoneworks is a custom granite surface company. So if you are sick of the laminate in your home, or you're sick of the countertops in your bathroom, or whatever, you give Element Stoneworks a call and they can come in and custom fabricate some granite or marble or whatever hard surfaces you want on your countertops. They do bathrooms, they do kitchens, they do desktops, they do nooks, they do pretty much any surface you want covered in granite or marble or whatever kind of style stone. Give them a call, 480-290-1879, or you can reach them at 602-930-8740. Sometimes it's better to reach out to these guys on text messages. Sometimes they get back a little bit quicker to you if you text them. Or you can find them online on Facebook or Instagram at Element Stoneworks. Hello, Planet Earth. This episode of the Deep Thinkers podcast is brought to you by Bright Island Outreach. Bright Island Outreach is a group of dental professionals that goes down to the Dominican Republic multiple times a year. They take young students, dental students from the United States, as well as dental students from the Dominican, and they all go down and they teach people how to take care of their teeth. People who can't afford to do it, people who can't afford to actually go to dentists, they go into some of the more impoverished areas, and they teach people how to take care of their teeth, and they do teeth extractions, and they do root canals and fillings and cosmetics. There's a lot of different ways you can help out. You can go online at brightislandoutreach.org, and you can buy a t-shirt. I wear mine all the time. They've got really cool prints, really soft cotton. They feel great. I always get compliments on it. People ask me what it's all about, and I tell them. You can donate, or if you feel like you really want to get involved, you can actually go with them and check it out and help them out. They're always looking for volunteers. So, but whatever you do, go online to Facebook or Instagram or Twitter and check them out there. Give them a follow and help them out with that online presence. Thank you very much. This episode of the Deep Thinkers podcast is brought to you by Crandall Pest Control. Crandall Pest Control was founded in 2002 and has been family owned and operated ever since. Their main bread and butter is scorpions, termites, and general pest, but they can usually handle any pest issues that you have for them. You can reach them online at crandallpest.com, or you can call them directly at 480-360-4999. So give them a call, mention the Deep Thinkers podcast, and get $30 off your first treatment. Hello, Planet Earth. My guest today is kind of a badass. His podcasts, How to Be a Real Man and Grow a Pair, are on iTunes and other podcast platforms. He's an award-winning author of books like Shut Up, Stop Whining, and Get a Life. It's called Work for a Reason. You're broke because you want to be. People are idiots, and I can prove it. No Time for Tact. Your kids are your own fault. The Idiot Factor, and Grow a Pair. Planet Earth, you can probably see already why I like this gentleman. He is the pit bull of personal development and the world's only irritational speaker and an amazing human being. Planet Earth, I am well pleased to give you Larry Winget. Hello, sir. How are you this morning?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for coming on. I'm a small podcast, and when people like yourself agree to come on, my dozens of listeners across the globe will all be thrilled. And
When I reach out to you and ask for an hour and 30 minutes and Larry Winget says you can have 30 minutes, my response is absolutely. I would love to have 30 minutes. So
I'm not that interesting for an hour and a half. I can do a hell of 30 minutes, though. I'm telling you.
yeah, I agree with you. You can do a great 30 minutes, and I'm sure you could do a longer than that, but I've never heard you for longer than that, so I can't comment there. So
There you go.
yeah, wanted to talk to you about it's called Work for a Reason. That book.
My favorite book, actually. It's I think my most important book was Your Kids Are Your Own Fault, because I do believe that we got to fix our parenting in society right now if we're really going to turn things around long term. But my favorite book it's called Work for a Reason. It's straight up business book, as you know, and I love that book. Huge bestseller for me too.
Oh, the way I describe it for people, I tell people, if you're a small business owner and you want your employees to get that small business owner mindset so that you don't have to worry about that as much, this is a book that you want laying around.
There you go.
I recommend it for anybody who works for a small company or owns a small company, who owns a large company or works for a big company. Anybody who has a job or has had a job or is planning on getting a job in the future, this is a book for you.
Well, I like that analysis right there. I really do. It's a book that
Go ahead.
no,
Sir.
it's a book that, in my opinion, lays it out pretty straight about what it takes to be successful in business. And it covers sales and customer service and management and leadership and how to take responsibility for your life and how to go to work and do your job, since that's what you're paid to do. I think we live in a time right now where so many people have this entitlement mentality that think that business owes them instead of them owing the business that writes them the check and pays their salary. And we've got to turn that around. And that book covers that as well.
Absolutely. One of the things I love about that book too is it discusses commitment, specifically your father's commitment to Sears. I love how you laid out that, hey, when he started working there, he made an agreement with Sears that he was going to be an excellent employee, and he honored it until the day he left. To me, that seems like that is missing so much in today's youth, is when you're working somewhere, that's where you work. Like, that's what you do. They're paying you for your time. Like, you are their company boy right there. It just
but
seems
see,
like
that's not a popular mentality right now because everybody's so in it for themselves, and we've got thousands of podcasts just like this one telling everybody they ought to go in business for themselves. And 99.9% of the people in the world should never become an entrepreneur. They haven't done a damn thing to prepare themselves to become an entrepreneur. They don't know how to sell. They don't know how to market. They don't know how to read a spreadsheet. They don't know what return on investment is. They don't know about management, leadership. They haven't done the work. They haven't done the prep. They don't know what competitive analysis is. Some dumbass brother-in-law said, you ought to do this. And they believed him. And so now they've started their business, and then they wonder why they're in trouble. It's because they didn't prepare to be in business. So most people shouldn't become entrepreneurs. They need a job. They need to every other Friday get that paycheck. And somehow we've taken the honor out of that. It's honorable to have a job. And what's also honorable is to keep your commitment and do what you were paid to do, that you agreed to do when they hired you for that job.
Absolutely.
And that's what we've lost along the way.
Yeah, in my YouTube channel, there's a video of me earlier on, I did last year at some point, where I talk about, well, you're a resident of the Valley. You're aware of Pete's Fish and Chips, right?
Yeah.
My friend's grandpa was Pete. And
really?
That family has been good to me through the years. When I first moved back from Utah, this would have been in 2012. I needed a job stat. And sitting around wasn't going to be an option for me. So I approached the family, and they're like, yeah, we'll put you on the schedule. And I had read, it's called Work for a Reason, maybe a year previous to that, when I was working for a door-to-door company. I had transitioned from doing door-to-door sales into the in-house part where I was actually running the housing for the reps that would go out for the summer and do all the knocking.
Yeah.
And that was a great book. That book really paved the way for what I was able to do with housing. But going back to Pete's, I decided that when I worked for Pete's that I didn't care if people thought it was a fast food job or a fish shop. I loved and respected the family. I was grateful that they gave me a job when I needed one, and I was going to work hard. And, there was a lot of times when I was sitting there in that drive-through, Larry, and people would pull up, and I'd be like, sometimes to get through it, I'd read it exactly as it was on the menu. And here's 5 ounces of our world-famous Pete's secret sauce. And here's your 15-ounce Pete's fish and chip. Just exactly as it was. And sometimes to get through it, I'd have to say it super fast with kind of a cheesy grin. But my customers were always happy. They'd always laugh. Sometimes they'd see, this guy's probably not on his A game today, but he's trying. He's putting out the effort, I guess I internalized that whatever day I was having, it was never my customer's fault. And they were there to get fish. They were there to get food. They were there what they came from. I was supposed to provide it. So I want to thank you personally for writing that book, because that book has impacted my life whenever I've had a job. It's called Work for a Reason. And one of my favorite chapters in that is You're a Thief. When you talk about productivity at the workplace, that's a great chapter because it's so true, especially with so much business being done today online, where people are sitting in front of computers and they don't have a ton of oversight at what they're doing at any given time. But
the whole idea of You're a Thief is around the fact that, when you look at the studies that are out there, most, when they're being honest, most of the studies say that employees admit that they only work half the time they're at work. Mm-hmm. Well, that's stealing. And anybody who has a computer in front of them, the studies say that 25% of your time is spent on that computer doing personal stuff or here on your phone. And you weren't hired to be on your phone. You weren't hired to do personal stuff. You were hired to work for the company. So in my opinion, if you're working an 8-hour shift and 2 hours a day, 25% you're doing personal stuff, you just stole that 2 hours from your employee.
Not only the hourly rate, but also the resources.
The employee feel that somebody wanted that money back.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it would. Yeah, definitely they'd have an opinion on it for sure. No, I'm lucky with the job I'm at right now. They allow me to be flexible to do my podcast. But at the same time, they know that I respect that clock. Because if you don't respect the clock will go away. It will leave you. Yeah. So they know
how that works. And yet, most people in that situation that you just described would blame the clock.
No.
And then they would blame the person who owns the clock. And that, as the pit bull of personal development, that's the tagline that I have for myself and trademark and all that sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. It really comes down to this idea of personal development, in my opinion, is all based on personal responsibility. Everything in your life is your own damn fault. You did it. Mm. Your thoughts, your actions created it. So you don't get to blame the clock or the guy who owns the clock. You get to go to the mirror, look yourself in the eye and say, I did this. This is my fault. Take responsibility for it. Fix it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, the clock is an inanimate object. All its whole function is to keep time when you clock in and when you clock out. What you do in between those two times is completely on you. So I thought that I've recommended that book to a lot of people. When I worked, the door-to-door company I was at was called Dish One. It was based out of Utah, but I did leave that book lying around up there just because there's so many in the door-to-door industry, especially. You're just out knocking all day, and no one knows if you spend 6 hours on the doors or 4 hours on the doors and 2 hours at the park. No one knows if you present that product accurately or if you stretch some details to fill in the gaps, because there's literally no oversight. So you really have to kind of have some strong principles and some strong morals. And I think that book is an excellent source of those, particularly if you haven't had any mentors in life that have taught you those principles.
Yeah.
But I'm grateful myself for strong
I
mentors.
appreciate that. I really am. Thank you.
So now I know that you're a big Merle Haggard fan. We're going to shift gears a little bit and talk about music, if you don't mind. What's your favorite Merle Haggard song?
I have so many, but when you think about Merle, and I think about Merle, I think of those heartbroken songs that he did with Bonnie Owens, and if I thought my hand was against you, I'd cut off my arm.
Yeah.
Oh my God, lines like that. So
Yeah.
I go back to a lot of those. But I am also from Muskogee, Oklahoma, so I have
Oh, look at you.
yeah.
Okay. Cool.
And I have a little something for Okie from Muskogee in there too. And I was one of those guys in 1969 who went to the Muskogee, Oklahoma Civic Center. In fact, I was the only kid in my high school, I think, went because I was the only. Everybody else was listening to rock, and I was listening to Merle then. And I actually heard Merle record the album live from Muskogee.
Wow.
It was cool.
So you're in the audience on that album.
Yeah.
That's a piece of history right there, Larry. That's awesome.
So yeah, I'm a Merle guy. I like all the old classic country, Merle and George and Straight and Jones and all those guys.
Yeah, I love old outlaw country.
Yeah.
I like my country western artists to be country western. Guys like Merle Haggard who actually walked the walk and not just talked the talk. I live in Mesa. Waylon Jennings is buried here. He's actually not too far away from my grandpa, so I'll go and pay some respects to him from time to time. But I love that old twangy country music, and I think my favorite Merle song is "Mama Tried." I was a little bit wilder in my younger years, and very close with my mom. However, she is still a devout Mormon. And I kind of left that path and went my own way years ago. I'm a humanist now. I love everybody. Love science. But I definitely Mama Tried. Not to the letter, obviously, but it does ring true for some things. So my mom would probably roll her eyes when she listens to this. She's my biggest fan, so she'll hear this at some point and roll her eyes, and then she'll look up.
My mama died this last year at the age of 96, and I can say that all the way up till 96, my mama was still trying to make me better.
Well, that's a great run. 96. Wow, that's amazing. So that's a good long run.
Yeah, big run.
Yeah, I'm fortunate. I'm 39. I still have both my parents. All my grandparents are gone, but my parents were not big into Merle Haggard. My dad and mom liked Johnny Mathis. They liked Frank Sinatra. They liked a different style of music. My dad loves Spanish opera music.
Really?
Oh yeah, man. Wow. We'd pile into our family van and go to like Montezuma's Castle or Tombstone or all the cool Arizona spots. And inevitably, about 2 hours on that drive would be Spanish opera music, and my dad's singing along and translating for us. And so, you go back very far in my family on both sides, and you got the Mormon polygamists down in Mexico. So,
really?
There's always a common Spanish thread, a little Spanish American ancestry. Maybe not our actual DNA, but certainly the culture. So, now you're from Oklahoma. When did you come out to Arizona?
Well, I traveled for over 20 years at a rate of about 250 days a year.
Jeez.
And travel, it's a lot of travel, giving speeches and so forth. And travel is tough when you live in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I was living in Tulsa at the time, and no really direct flights out of Tulsa. You had to make connections through all those places, and that really added a lot of time to my travel. Besides that, I hate cold weather. And Tulsa was a great place to live, in fact, the best place on earth 4 months out of the year. But the other 8 months was a little iffy. It was too hot and humid and too many mosquitoes, and the rest of the time there was too much ice. So I love the desert. I love the heat. I love all that. So does my wife. And so we made the transition to Arizona and never looked back. We love it out here.
Yeah, I was adopted here at 3 months old. So born in Dallas, but raised here my whole life. So I consider myself a local, um, especially with my parents, their families settling the state. So, but yeah, man, everybody I've talked to that's moved here as an adult, the one thing they have in common is they brought their wife on vacation here during the winter.
Yeah.
And then that's done. Yeah, it's done. We're moving here. So, but yeah. And how long have you been a resident of Arizona?
20 years now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So a good long time before the both big booms. So,
Yeah.
wow, that's
Yeah.
cool.
And, it's been good to us. I like it. And, how can you dislike some place that when the rest of the world, like right now, is freezing and knee deep in snow? And I mean, we're going to hit 70 degrees today.
Oh, well, I mean, it's not all smiles and roses, Larry. It was 40 degrees, 41 degrees when I left my house this morning at
Oh, yeah, well,
at 6 a.m.
that would be our low, though.
Oh, yeah, that was totally the low, I lived in Utah for 7 years, which isn't super cold, but as far as places that get snow, but it gets plenty of snow. I lived in the Pacific Northwest for a year and a half, and I'm no stranger to cold weather. And I'll tell you, these winters are wonderful. Not only that, but you combine the winter weather with the road system because the winter weather doesn't mess up the roads. And I have to say we have the best roads on the planet here.
Well, but why wouldn't we? They never get much moisture.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
they never freeze. They never get wet. So they ought to last a good long while.
Yeah, as long as they can stand through the heat. So, do you have any speaking appointments coming up in the future that my listeners can catch you at, or what are you doing these days?
Corporate gigs. I don't do very many public things where people can buy tickets and so forth. I do a deal in Las Vegas with two of my buddies, straight up small businesses. And we do that in August. And if people will follow me on, my fan page or go to Ultimate Business Summit, we talk about that there. And we'll be releasing those dates here pretty quick.
I have yet to see you speak in public, so that is something I would be interested in attending. So,
sure. A couple of days in August, and it's quite a deal. And my guys that I bring on with me, we all have sort of different areas of expertise. We have a guy, Scott McCain, who talks about creating distinction. The other guy's Randy Pennington, and he's probably the foremost authority on the area of how to work with people in your business and how to get the most out of them, and all that HR stuff, and yet makes it interesting and fascinating. And those guys really have that. And then me, I scream and yell a lot and make people laugh. I guess I'm comic entertainment as well as the boot in the ass that people need. So there you go.
You are definitely an entertaining individual. That is certain. I think the first conversation we had on Facebook was right around 2012. It was when Ron Paul was making it was 2008. It was when Ron Paul was making his big push for the presidency, and you and I actually had a little conversation about him. And I believe your comment was something to the effect of, Ron Paul has some good ideas, however, he's not electable, mainly because he looks like Floyd the Barber.
There you go.
And my response was, "How dare you, sir?" with a smiley face. But it very much so. But yeah, I've definitely enjoyed following you on Facebook and following you.
I appreciate that.
And
I just keep it entertaining. And I'm big on engagement.
I love that about you. Yeah.
Yeah, I talk to people. I figure if they take the time, I'll take the time to respond. And most of the people who operate at my level, they don't even post their own stuff. Most people who do this at all don't post their own stuff. I never figured that out. It is called social media. Why don't we try to be social on there?
Yeah, no, you've embraced it.
Take that long. So just, react to people. Especially every day I get up and and try to say something provocative that makes people think. I believe whether I piss them off or not, it doesn't matter. If I've made you think, then we all win.
Right.
And that's my goal, is to get people thinking. It solidifies their opinion. It maybe opens their mind a little bit. And if I get them thinking and they respond, I think I owe it to them. It's my responsibility to respond, and I do.
Well, I appreciate that. You're one of the few big names out there that do man your own account, and it's only obvious that you are the one behind that screen there. I mean, it's the responses are definitely you, and they come as they come. William Shatner does that sometimes, every now and again.
Yeah.
I love listening to him argue with idiots on Twitter, or watching him argue with idiots on Twitter. It's hilarious to me. But
At some point, arguing with the idiots, you just realize, it's that old line about, you can wrestle a pig, but both of you get dirty and the pig likes it.
Yeah.
And that's sort of my approach. I have an argument with people as long as their argument makes some sort of sense. I want people to have a reason for believing what they believe, and I'll argue with you for as long as you want to, as long as you're respectful. But the sad thing about social media is that it's become so disrespectful, because we're all internet cowards who only have internet balls out there, and we're willing to say anything in the world to somebody as long as we got a keyboard in front of us, but we would never say it face to face. And when it becomes disrespectful is when I cut it off. Right.
I made a comment. It was about the public land debate on Cameron Haynes' Instagram the other day, and I got shit on for it. And I wasn't even that bad of a comment. I'm not that guy that goes and makes negative stuff. I'm not trying to piss off anybody who's I'm following and is posting cool stuff. But I did make a comment on the public land debate, and one guy just crucified me, man. Idiot, this and this and this, and you don't know anything in this. And so I was just like, wow, like that was pretty aggressive. So I clicked on his picture, and the dude had a bright red beard down to here. And so all I did was I hit reply and said, seriously, your beard is badass. And that's all I had to say. And he responded with thank you. So that's kind of how I choose to engage people that are lashing out at me. I'm not trying to argue or make enemies with people out there. I have my beliefs. I have my stance. I tend to go strongly with science and reason. In fact, that's the arena I like to come from. But I'm always open to listening to why people feel that way. For me, the big important thing is perspective. I may not agree with someone, but I want to understand why they feel that way and why they feel they're right. Yeah. Because it generally comes from a deep-rooted place. And when people are that passionate and they are arguing, it's like, okay, man, lay this out for me. Explain it to me like I'm an intelligent 12-year-old. What's your deal? Yeah. Because I don't agree with you, but that's fine. Yeah. So, I mean, respectful, open communication online is something that is kind of new for most people like myself. To have access to people like yourself, I can reach out and be like, hey, Larry, let's do a podcast. How do you think that's going to change industries and change people as a whole? Because right now I feel like as a species, we're so immature with this whole social media that we're still, it's crazy. Well, it's going to change the way we do business for sure, because we have, for instance, I don't care. It's not a political statement. I don't care what you think about Trump or don't think about Trump. But the fact that Trump is utilizing Twitter to reach people and bypassing the media, and that's what he says, the reason he uses Twitter. That alone is a huge example of the way that it's impacting our society right now. Now, that is compounded in business. That I don't need the yellow pages anymore to reach people. I don't need billboards and radio and all that. I have this. Right. And when we can go straight to consumers like we are right now, business is going to look different, and it is different for many of us. Social media for me is another business platform. Absolutely. I don't need to talk to my friends on here.
very few on here are my friends.
You recently
And I
made
don't
a comment about that. You recently made a comment about that on one of your podcasts. Online Friends by Larry Winget. You don't know any of these people. Stop calling them friends. I love that. I love that.
Yeah, but this is the way I run my business, and I use it for that. So it's going to change the way we do business. And if you're not on board with this as one of the arms of your business, then I think you're going to lose. You've got to be good at technology and social media in order to win long term, and that's why you see so many businesses, from dry cleaners to chimney sweeps to HVAC guys out there that are utilizing social media to reach their consumers by adding value and posting things that gets people's attention. And that's going to be that way. Now, on a personal level, I think I think that there's a big plus, but I think that we also get in trouble because of those trolls with internet balls who just want to attack people because they have a keyboard. But if we use it the right way, we can. The chances of you and I meeting and bumping into each other on the street, never having a conversation, that's very so slim. Remote. And look at what we're able to do.
Right. But yeah, this is a classic example of how social media is changing industries for people like yourself and myself. My podcast is so very infantile. I believe you'll be episode 22. 5 years ago, if I'd wanted to start a podcast, even before podcasting was a thing, if I wanted to start a YouTube vlog, I would have, we'll go back a little farther, say 10 years ago. I would have no idea how to get a hold of Larry Winget to have such a conversation. Whereas now, I don't have to contact a publisher or an agent. A lot of times I can just reach out and they, like you said, can you please schedule this through my assistant? More than happy to. Thank you. It's a game changer. I could never been able to do something like this back in the day, but now it's what I'm doing and I love it. We're running short on time. Are you good? I want to be respectful.
No, we're good here.
All right, cool. So now you do a lot of corporate speaking and things like that. And it's called Work for a Reason. You talk about an HVAC company that you visited. And you talked about guys wearing do-rags, popping beers on a Saturday. How can you tell me a little bit more about that? That seemed like an awesome situation. I would love to hear you talk about it from the horse's mouth.
Yeah, it was just a speech that they brought me in to just talk to their guys about what it takes to be successful. And I went in on a Saturday, and they got their do-rags and beards, and I like beards, and we got along fine in that respect. And I wear jeans and boots, and I don't even own a suit.
You are a fashionable motherfucker. That is for sure, sir. Absolutely.
Well, that was my son. I have a son who's a fashion designer.
Yes.
And that was his first line.
He and I have met. He and I have met in the past. He's a talented designer and a great guy. So both your sons.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah. And just briefly, both your sons are actually pretty impressive individuals, from what I've heard.
I appreciate that. Yeah, they're good guys. And so they brought me in. And, I just talk straight to folks. And so it wasn't a guy in a suit that was there to talk down to them. I stood in a chair, in the middle of a room, on top of a chair, just so I could see them all, and would kind of turn around like this and all the way around. It was truly theater in the round while I stood in the middle of a chair. And, they all drinking beer and they had cooking barbecue in the parking lot. We'd get them a sandwich and come back in. And it was just a great experience of exchange of ideas, real open and straight talk with guys. I like that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I like how you talked about them specifically investing in their employees.
Yeah.
That seemed to me like such a powerful move in business.
When businesses will spend the money to make their employees better people, that better people do a better job. I mean, if I have an employee, I can teach a monkey how to do almost everything. That fact is that. And if I can't teach a monkey how to do it, I can teach a robot. I could buy a robot to do it.
Yeah.
But I need people for the human factor to really get the work done. And so I I don't need to spend as much time on the technical side, the skills side, because that can really be done pretty quickly in most cases,
Right.
unless it's brain surgery. But most jobs, that's the case. However, if I've got a guy that knows how to, or a girl, it doesn't matter. I'm not trying to be sexist here, all inclusive. But if I have an employee that knows how to set and achieve goals, knows how to respect the people they interact with, knows how to say please and thank you, and has core values of honesty and integrity, and I teach those things, reinforce those things, reward those things, they will do the skill side better. And that's what I see businesses invest in.
I absolutely agree. We are running a little short on time, and I am going to have to get going here. But thank you so much. Sorry we had to reschedule this the first time. You never know when that devil flu is going to hit. And then right after I got over that, I laid down on something and had an allergic reaction. Ended up in urgent care. My eyes were swelling up. Oh, it was 3 shots in my ass, oral steroid for a couple days, and then lots of Benadryl. But it was not fun. So, but I'm good now. Everything's back to
normal. Glad you're healthy, and here we are.
Yeah,
and it was
as ugly as I've ever been.
Good job. I appreciate you having me on. I really do.
Thank you so much, Larry. Thank you so much for coming on the Deep Thinkers. Thank you for writing the books you do, and thank you for your approach to public speaking and to personal development that you have. I know it resonates with me, and I'm sure it's going to resonate with dozens of my listeners across the globe who probably have already heard of you. But just in case they haven't, please follow Larry. He's on Facebook, he's on Twitter, he's on YouTube. Of course, his podcasts are on iTunes and other platforms. Is there anything I'm missing here? Is there any shout outs or plugs that you want to give before we go?
No, just follow me. And if anybody doesn't remember where, just go to LarryWinget.com. People can find me pretty easily. So there you go.
Thank you, Planet Earth, for tuning in. And above all, be excellent to each other.